antidepressants.
But that's not unusual for people to commit suicide out of the blue. No forewarning, no note, no history of depression. That happens.
It doesn't happen as often with the people that are taking Chantix. In fact, it happens far more often than you'd ever expect, and far more often than it's acceptable.
America is the home of litigation, so the news of 5 lawsuits isn't surprising. But Mark Grossman has 20 more in the pipeline.
Pfizer is the largest pharmaceutical manufacturer in the world. They've developed a drug to help people as an aid to quit smoking. They're in a far better position to know the risks than our doctors and the experts we're going to hire, who now have to go back and kind of recreate what they did in their formulations in developing this drug and what they knew or didn't know. But they certainly have a duty to go ahead and do the research and investigate what problems there are with the drug.
We wanted to put all of the points raised in our programme to the company itself, Pfizer, but they declined an interview.
Back home in Scotland, and the company sent me this statement.
Pfizer rigorously tested varenicline in a comprehensive clinical trial program lasting many years and involving thousands of patients. Based on the results of those clinical trials, regulatory agencies in Europe, the US and elsewhere have recognized the safety and efficacy profile of varenicline and approved the medicine for use in smoking cessation in adults, as described in the labeling information for the product. Stopping smoking, with or without treatment, is associated with nicotine withdrawal symptoms and the exacerbation of underlying psychiatric illness. Depressed mood may be a symptom of nicotine withdrawal. Depression, rarely including suicidal thoughts and suicide attempt, has been reported in patients undergoing a smoking cessation attempt, including patients taking varenicline. If any of these symptoms are experienced and are of concern, treatment should be stopped immediately.
But surely any problems with the drug would have come out in the clinical trials which Champix underwent, the trials which are meant to make drugs safe for all of us. It's the job of the medicines regulator to monitor these trials.
It's a controlled environment where the drug is studied very carefully and very intensively with particular groups of people. Now, it's the job of the regulator, our job, to make sure that those trials are representative, that we can have a reasonable assumption that the medicine is safe, and we balance that against the benefit that smokers can get. Now, as the drug is used in more and more people, more and more different types of people with different lifestyles and different approaches, different genetic makeups, different ethnic backgrounds use the product. And you can't possibly cover all of those in clinical trials, so we're always going to learn more as the drug is used in the wider population.
So it seems we only learn about the real effects of a drug when it hits the streets. I went to meet an expert who's got concerns about the limitations of the current testing process.
I think you've got to realise that these trials have good, what we call internal validity. They're good at showing that the drug works. They're not good at showing that the drug works in the real population out there, in the world of the National Health Service, with all the messy things that happen, like patients not taking their drugs or perhaps being prescribed not in perfect conditions, because the world is like that.
Professor MacDonald is leading a campaign for larger drugs trials, using a wider, randomised cross-section of people.
If we don't do large randomised effectiveness trials, we risk not knowing that a drug's fantastic, and we risk not knowing that it's toxic. We are in a vacuum in terms of knowledge, and that's the worst situation to be in.
It's a vacuum in which people in Scotland and across the UK find themselves. People like Ali Jama, still wondering why his brother died.
Now it's a lot worse because he's an innocent victim. If indeed it has played as much of a role in facilitating his suicide as I believe it has.
Omar Jama had clearly taken his own life, but surprisingly, the coroner did not record his death as suicide.
The inquest was held and the coroner recorded an up-and verdict because she couldn't record a verdict of suicide recorded an open verdict because on the evidence of the forensic toxicologist, that found that Champix was still in his bloodstream, and she'd read and researched that it had possible links to suicidal tendencies. So she couldn't rule out that it didn't play a part in his suicide.
With everything I'd learned, it was time to speak to the body which licensed Champix for use across Europe.
We have, or our committee have come to the conclusion that it appears that the benefits still outweigh the risks. This is not because anybody doubts that the events are serious. When people kill themselves, what could be more serious? But there is still uncertainty whether Champix is really the culprit.
In the end, the agency believes the need to combat smoking-related deaths is the priority.
This drug is designed and has been shown to be effective in helping patients quit smoking. Now, we all know that there is several 100,000 premature deaths across the European Union every year. This is a major public health issue. We know that a large proportion of smokers want to quit, but they find it difficult. So against that background, any drug, and I emphasize, any drug that has a positive benefit-risk profile is valuable and welcome. I think the public is justified to be concerned, and we're extremely concerned. But being concerned is not the same as being convinced that there is a causal relationship. So that's why we have implemented a high alert monitoring program. We have here at the agency weekly meetings where we would analyze all the incoming data and would alert then the committee that is relevant, the working party, that is charged to specifically look at these events and see what action is required.
The regulators here say they're now aware of the reported side effects of Champix and are advising patients and doctors accordingly.
What we've done so far is to strengthen the warnings, to make sure that the patient information leaflet that you have with your medicine is very clear that we have had these sorts of reports so that patients themselves can look out for it. We've also given information to prescribers, to doctors, to tell them to discuss this with patients and to make clear that if they feel these sorts of feelings, they should stop taking the medicine and talk to their doctor.
Those precautions came too late for some of the people we've spoken to. Back in Greenock, Robert and Karen McGee are still struggling to come to terms with what happened to her.
I'll never put myself through that again. I'd never put my family through it again. I'll always be a smoker, or if I quit, then I'll quit naturally.
And to those people who are taking the drug Champix, Karen, what would you say to them?
I would say to them to go to their doctor. Speak to their doctor about any concerns they've got, any side effects, even wee minor side effects. Just go and speak to their doctor and see that whether that they should be on these Champix or not. And for the company, I would say to the company, then I think that the tablets should get banned until further research is done on it. That's my feelings.
How much do you miss Omar? What's life like without him?
It's terrible. It's terrible. I think about him every single day. I see him every single day, and it's just shocking when anybody loses a loved one, but somebody with so much to live for, somebody that was so important in a lot of people's lives. It's terrible. It's terrible, and we're getting on with life. I'm getting on with life, but it's never going to go away. Time's not a healer on something like this.
The stories we've heard, and there are many more like them, are shocking and sad. The people involved have either lost loved ones or come close to death themselves. Karen McGee here in Scotland and James Elliott in Washington say they acted out of character and they truly believe their actions were caused by taking Champix. But as the company Pfizer points out, there is no proof this drug caused these episodes, and the drug is proving effective in helping people stop smoking. The Champix packs themselves now